We are back.
Yes, we are.
Just keep coming back.
Yeah, it's necessary.
Yeah.
And it's a drive. It feels like a drive. Like I could never quit. I could never be like, let's just not do this anymore.
Yeah, I never have that feeling. I do feel like I don't land the plane very well in my ideas. I feel like I have a lot of growth in presenting my ideas and concepts.
As we do.
Yeah.
We're baby podcasters.
Yeah.
We didn't go to podcasting school or broadcasting school.
Yeah.
We're just silly nurses telling our silly stories.
So today's topic, occupational hazards of nursing. Mm-hmm. And that we were texting back and forth yesterday about what we were going to talk about today. And I read the text as I was wiping down a cart with purple wipes. Purple wipes.
Yeah, purple top. Green top, purple top, red top.
I was so disgusted by, like, you know how we get to the bottom of the can of purple wipes and they're super wet and the stink is so bad.
It's so
they
strong.
Just are so noxious.
So strong.
But they didn't used to be, I don't think, to me.
I feel like
not like they are today.
I don't know. I don't know if the wipes are different or are we different?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. I don't remember.
Were we numb to the smell and we're not paying attention and now we are paying attention, or is it literally the wipes? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's very, very strong and, worse than me.
Oh my God. It could be a sign that we're getting older.
Well, it could be. I can't tolerate that. Well, there's a lot I can't tolerate, and I won't tolerate.
Another sign of my age.
A lot like these lines.
I know
I keep thinking, I'm like, just Julie, it's wisdom.
Yeah.
When someone looks at me and is like, God, she has thought a lot.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, and how many times you have that look in nursing? You're like
just scowling. Scowling.
What? Yeah.
Occupational hazard. This right here. You're going to get this if you're a nurse.
Yeah, the forehead divot. I'm going to start looking at that on people.
Yeah, you're gonna look angry. Your face is going to present anger to the world if you're a nurse.
Practice this.
Yeah, I try to.
I know. But yes, the wipes. So I did also, as we were texting, because I was also wiping down carts, because that's my little retirement job. They have poison control information on the back of them. And it says use gloves and masks, get it real wet. Like they're just luring you in.
Uh-huh. What do you mean? They, who's they?
I have a they, and it's whoever this is here that controls everything. He makes all these products that we have to use. Like you have to use it. When did that come about? Like who made that up? What would happen if we just wiped the bed down with something else? Like a soap and water.
Yeah.
But it's this noxious and how much does that purple top company make? Because they say you have to use them, so they have to buy them. I don't know. I think too much into government.
You go dark.
Well, I do.
Yeah.
But then I try to keep it light because it doesn't affect me. But it's just things are always interesting to me about why. Who said that you had to use those wipes and why? And what meeting was that? What were you talking about that they were like, oh, we're going to make these super noxious, like the worst kind of things, and we're going to make nurses have to use them every day. And I don't just pull out one. I pull out like,
that kind of goes into the reductionist thinking, scientific inquiry, where the questions that are being asked are not the question is a human question in the sense that it is the problem of infection control that is being addressed. So the problem is human facing, meaning that infection control is a human issue, that we're trying to prevent infections for humans. So the patient is really the primary objective in the pursuit of reducing what is going to truly eliminate toxic or harmful bacteria.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the scientists and the companies that are creating these things are malicious towards us in any way. Really, I think they're focusing on the problem and creating a solution that, yes, it feeds the entire system that we're moving in, and it is affecting us because we're the ones that interact with it. So
right.
It's so like the patients don't interact with it; they interact with a clean bed or a
right.
clean cart. But we're the ones that interact or are interfacing with that science, and so it's an occupational hazard.
Right. So that's kind of where,
because it clearly says on the can that it's cancerous. But for years, I never wore gloves with purple wipes. I believe I was told they were safe to handle.
Yeah.
I don't know if I read it, or I don't know if I just didn't read the bottle, or if it was cultural, if the culture of the unit or the hospital was such that the purple wipes are safe. Don't worry. Or was it's all relative, F it, it's fine.
Yeah. kind of like that, I think. And there are lots of things that have been put in place for patient safety, for cleanliness of the hospital, to eliminate accidents, like most places. Don't the wet sign thing has to be down, things like that. But there are so many things that it feels like nobody takes into consideration how it's going to affect the nurses.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of scientific data about the purple wipes cut bacteria and they kill viruses and blah, blah, blah. And so you're going to have a super clean bed. But is there any kind of documentation on how that it affects the nurse's long-term use of it?
Oh, it just says it causes cancer.
Okay.
And you, when you read it, I didn't even read it. I just know that I don't like the smell of it, and I find myself, wiping the bed down and trying to get away from the fumes. You're dodging fumes that are literally cancer causing.
Yeah. So that's just one thing.
Well, it kind of gets to the idea that I was thinking about in this conversation, which is the threats to our life. Like, we've talked about the violence that we experience, that we have been punched, kicked, bit, hit, spit on, shat on, pissed on. Do you remember the neuro patient, the guy that had he had some type of neurological disorder where he perpetually masturbated and was throwing it on us? Do you remember that? I remember which room he was in. I remember which pod he was in. I remember the whole thing. Oh, it was terrible. It was absolutely traumatizing.
Yeah. So I feel like I have like bits and pieces, like it might be like a fever dream. that's a lot of my memories. I'm like,
fever dreams is a perfect way to say that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can imagine. And
so we have all these different threats to our life. Like, do you remember the time that the patient called hits on the nursing staff on 5th floor, and then he came to me in the ICU?
No, I don't know that he came to you in the ICU.
Oh yeah. No, he was calling in hits on us all, describing us, giving our names, the whole thing. Yeah. Oh God.
How do we even stay? How do we
stay? Why do we stay?
I don't know.
Why do we keep putting ourselves through it?
I don't really know. I think it's because this is what you chose. This is what you do. This is what society says it is. It is this way. You're not going to change it. You're one little drop in the bucket. Your little voice is not going to matter. That's what it feels like, I guess. Like when you're in a system and what are you going to say? What would you say? You can't, because honestly, a lot of the times, even in a violent situation, it turns around to be your fault anyways.
A lot of times does get pinned on us. Yeah.
And it's like, well, what could you have done better? Could you not have maybe raised your voice like that? Or what did you do to provoke the patient? Or,
When in reality, maybe the thing that you should be doing is raising your voice. Right. Put it down. I mean, I would say I definitely turned into that. I definitely turned on patients, not necessarily in a physically violent way, but once you get to a point where you recognize there is no reason, there is no reason.
Yeah.
And I'm not reasonable after that.
Yeah.
You can't reason with me. If you've proven to me that there is no reason, I'm a stone wall.
Yeah, we're done talking.
We're done talking. Yeah, I'm gonna
telling nurses that, like, you're not gonna talk him into not taking his narcotics. So just give the narcotics as ordered.
Yeah.
It'll make your job and my job a lot better.
Yeah.
Just give it. Don't stand there and argue, because now you're just making you're just bubbling up and boiling the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one thing. But there are a lot of things that happen completely unprovoked. Nurses, as kind, using their gentle voice, using their nurse voice, doing what they trying to give medications, just the simplest little things, being as kind as you are. And that they don't care. Those patients don't care. It's done. Granny, it's got your arm.
Yeah. With a poo paws. Shit sticks.
Yeah. Oh, those poopy fingernails as they dig into your skin. Oh my God. Well, and, they teach nurses now. We all have to go through that silly protect yourself training. What is it called? How they teach you how to, like, block with a chair, or don't put yourself in the corner, or
don't put your stethoscope. Don't put your stethoscope around your neck.
Yeah. I mean, and it just came to my mind. We're kind of talking about this in a light nature, and I know that there have been nurses out there who have been completely traumatized by even just one situation where they have been completely taken over control and have been physically harmed, and it never should happen.
Right.
It is never the nurse's fault.
You're right.
It just, those kind of things, and patients acting a certain way, it never is the nurse's fault. I mean, you can't.
I mean,
I guess there would be situations.
I've seen some nurses that provoke. There are nurses that provoke. There are nurses that provoke.
Why are they provoking? Why?
I mean, sometimes it's just, So sometimes it's that, but sometimes, I mean, nurses, we're human, and so there's every personality type. And there are some nurses that have no bedside manner, and they say things that are offensive. That is a fact. That's true. But I mean, I hear what you're saying. Yes, most of the time we are subjecting ourselves to abuse. Like where did it happen? How did it happen that patients became so entitled to treat us that way?
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this before. Like when pain becomes so great that you lose touch with reality. You're not. I mean, so like there are some that are just flat out entitled and mean, and they're abusing the system. I mean, that's a fact. There's abusive system, and then a lot of those people carry infectious diseases.
Yeah.
That can kill us. I can't actually say that this story is. I can't say that he was entitled. I really didn't even know the patient. I was a nursing student, and I was observing a procedure, and I got splashed in the face with blood. I immediately went and I washed my eyes out, and because it got in my eyes, I felt it like it was in my eyes, and nobody told me to wear glasses or do anything. I was a nursing student observing. No one else was wearing glasses. And so I went. I washed my eyes out, reported it, and the patient had been discharged. By the time they got to the decision that they needed to test my blood and to test the patient had discharged and they lost track of him. And it was maybe 6 weeks later, they contacted me and said that the patient had HIV. And I remember it was Christmas break, and they called me into the office and told me that I thought I had done something. I thought I was in trouble. I was like, oh my God, what could I have done? I haven't done anything, and it's the dean and like two of the top professors, and they're like, we have some bad news for you. And I was like, and then they told me, and I was just like, it was so far out of because I had so many other experiences in those 6 weeks that were so much that like I had forgotten all about it.
Yeah.
It was nothing. And so they told me that, and it was just so shocking. And I immediately was thrust into, because I was outside the window of protocol for the prophylactic or that's not prophylactic. It's, I guess, treating, pre-treating when they give you
there's a whole protocol and order set for, if you get a needle stick and or bloodborne pathogen, whatever, and it's HIV, that you can opt to be treated prophylactically, because clearly you did not have HIV, but you would be treated with the medications. Right.
So I was outside that window. So I was down. They set me up with a infectious disease doc, and I saw him for 6 months. It started out like he was assessing my liver. I think it was twice a week, and they excused me from everything to go do that. But I was married at the time, so there was no intimacy for those 6 months. I was like, I'm super young. I'm a young dad, and I've got this kid, and I'm like, this could change my whole life And I just kept going. You just keep going. Like, what is that?
No.
I mean, so that's one story that I feel like informs my perspective on COVID. When it came to COVID, it was like, okay, another life-threatening, unseeable threat, So what? It's Tuesday. It's like,
it just came to my mind. It's similar with like firefighters and how they are deliberately running into a burning building.
Yeah.
So whatever that drive is, that drive to rescue, that drive to, perform what keeps them going into the burning building. And that's kind of similar. Like, but you kept going with it. You kept wanting to be a nurse. You were like, well, I mean, I guess this is just part of it. I got stuck by a needle once. I think the patient jumped, and I was starting the needle, and then he jumped, and it came back, and then I went like that to my hand. So it had been in him? Yeah, I had perked his skin like to go into the vein. He jumped, so it came back out, and then my hand, like right about here.
Yep.
And I was pregnant.
Oh, jeez. Jeez.
Freeze. You're like, now his vein blood is just running down, and I'm like, so you just keep going. And I think I washed it, and went in. You got to fill out all the paperwork. I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
He came back he was not HIV positive. Thank God, because what would I have done?
What would you have done?
Taken that medication.
But I mean, it's happened. I mean, we worked with someone that acquired HIV from a needle stick.
Yeah.
I mean, he was much older, and it happened a long time ago. And
right.
I think he was traveling.
We knew him, and we knew the story. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was traveling to New York City or something, and got a stick. Yeah. It happens.
So it's scary, but it's so interesting why we don't retreat. If I was collecting garbage, like if that was my job and I had to jump off the back of the truck, hook the cans up, get the can off, and I got like run over. You be like, oh God, I gotta go back. I'd be like, fuck that. I am but as a nurse, you're like, I just did.
I just keep coming back. Yeah.
Got the incident report, and I'm pregnant, and I might have HIV, and so might my baby, and we'll just wait it out, I guess. So I'll see you tonight. It's so crazy.
It's so crazy.
God, it just is. But that just shows you how, I hate the word resilient, but that is what that is. It is a mental strength that comes from somewhere that keeps nurses going. And for me, it was glaring during COVID. The pull to go help for me, because I was in management when COVID first came, and I was helping all the nurses, and I was way too emotionally involved with all of it and all of them, and because I had a whole unit out that got COVID.
Oh, wow.
The emotional involvement, but the pull to go to like New York or to go work for an agency, to go to the places like, because it, before it hit Kansas City, obviously it hit the periphery of the United States. For me, the pull to go, I had to be like, we are not doing that, Julie. Like, but we should, you could, you can, you will, you need to. They need you. They need you.
They God, need you. And that is exactly, they need me. They need me. My community needs me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They need me.
That was the hard, when I left in 2013, that was the internal struggle. I have spent all this time, all this money, all this effort to build up the skills that I have to serve the community, and they need me. It was such an internal struggle.
Yeah.
But I couldn't stay. It was so hard.
Well, and then, I mean, again, I think we talked about this several episodes ago, but it's like a bad relationship. It's like you keep getting treated like shit, and no one's really thinking for you. No one's really out there rooting for you or, putting you first. It's this, you just keep going back, hoping it's going to be different, hoping that he loves you. And he never.
I just want you to love me.
Love me.
Love me.
Need me. Oh my God. So is that something that is, no, I don't want to say broken, but is that something in our own psyche that creates that need for us? Or makes us feel like we are needed, and we keep going back to this very abusive, violent.
Well, I mean,
thing.
I think that a lot of times, not every nurse has experienced some form of abuse in their past, but I think a lot have.
I do too.
And so maybe there's something familiar.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. But one of the things that has come up for me a couple of times, listening to you talk, is, and this is kind of a mental workshop thing, the idea of leukemia. So we keep coming back, but we've got this now. We've got this angry face that, because when you walk into a patient's room and they're manipulating you, and you shut your face down, you can't penetrate me. I'm not letting, so there is, and I would say that if you really look at all of the dark humor that the content creators are creating on Instagram, the common thread is a hate of humanity.
Yeah.
Amongst the nursing community, there is a deep, deep anger and hatred towards the collective humanity. And so as I've thought about that idea, if you expand your mind to think about this, if you expand your mind to think about larger systems. Oh,
that's all right. We'll just cut it out.
Hold on, I'm getting a phone call. Doggone it.
That's all right. He'll come back on. And then just start with, if you expand your mind. There.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Where is it? Where are we? Yeah, somebody was calling me. Why can't I see it?
I can see you.
Okay, there we go. Timestamp that at 29:22.
Yeah,
let's see. Was it 28?
It was like 28:40 or something.
Yeah, it's a good exercise because this is what we were talking about doing, is pausing and collecting our thoughts. So if you expand your mind and think about leukemia, that what is leukemia? We have all of the different blood components, and the white blood cells are the blood cells. Like it's not like they aren't like abstractly labeled white blood cells. Like when you look at them under a microscope, they're literally white blood cells. And so their function is to essentially kill pathological cells that are trying to harm and damage the body. When you get leukemia, those white cells turn on healthy cells and start destroying the body itself. So if you look at the dark humor of nursing and the healthy, like you look at the dark humor of nurses and the underlying hatred of humanity, it's as if though, like the nursing community, I wonder what the ratio of nurses and like healthcare providers are to the collective society, because it would be fascinating if they correlated to blood components. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we are turning like that stone wall. Once that patient has proven to me that there is no reason, and they are either lying to me or they are manipulating, or they just don't have the capacity to reason. You know, there's a difference between somebody who's manipulating, lying, and or being aggressive, and someone who is uncontrolled because of their pathology, because of whatever it is that is happening to them. There's a fundamental difference, and we know the difference generally. So it just seems to me that we have one of the core issues of modern society is that we have leukemia.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you take the nursing and the dark humor and kind of where that has gone and looks like it's steeping, and then you lay over the pathology of leukemia, it could match up.
Yeah. No, I think it matches up in my mind.
I'm not wronging anybody. We're not wronging anybody for doing the dark humor, because I think it's hilarious.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So relevant, and it makes me feel happy almost
to
read and to see some of those memes, because I'm like, either
it's so true,
100% true, or it's just so funny. Like nurses only would get it. Like hilarious, because it's like they are grasping for something. So it's a symptom of what is happening to nurses. What has been happening is just creating this.
It's a natural outflow of a result of the truth of our experience. Yeah.
But it's a symptom of something that's happening way prior to them creating the dark humor. And that to almost gain some just a breath. Dark humor is literally like
because it's true. Yeah, it's wild.
It is wild. I
mean, and that's like that goes back to the isolation of our experience. Like that I think, you know, I stayed off of social media for a long time, and it was the dark humor of nursing that really pulled me into it again. Is that I felt like whoever created this can see me.
Yes.
They can see me. They would understand. They would understand me.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, if you scroll through social media and you might, my account shows a lot, but you know, say you take 5 different social media accounts, they don't know each other. They don't know. The only thing they have in common is that they're nurses.
Right.
they're putting out essentially the same content, maybe with different meme, maybe a different saying, but it's essentially the same. So it is a collective feeling, that an expression of what it is like to be a nurse.
Yeah.
To work in some of the places and some of the units and with some of the people that we have to work with. And part of that, I think it comes from all the craziness that we deal with, and, the hazards, not only the products that we use, the physical mechanics that we have to do. And I don't care if you send me to a yearly back saving training.
Oh, come on.
Hoyer lift, they used to, it took like 4 people and you would put the lift thing under there. No, now they've just made it so it just takes one person, and all you got to do is lean the patient up and shove it down their back, and you can get it done. I know a thing that happened, and that fucking patient fell out of the Hoyer lift and broke her hip.
Oh my gosh, that is a nightmare. Oh my, I hate using those things. I mean, they're great, but they scare the crap out of me.
And I lifted, because I did open hearts for a long time. Like, that's kind of just what I did. Mm-hmm. And so every morning they had to have a chest x-ray. And usually open heart patients aren't the skinniest of the community. And when I was taking care of them, they were intubated usually until morning. So they're intubated, they have all the lines in their neck, they have all the chest tubes, you have all your pacemaker wires, all the monitor wires. And, of course, mine were pristine, and they were all.
Oh, yeah.
Everything was.
God, that feels good.
Laid, like, don't you move. And so then radiology comes in the morning, we didn't have the nice beds that you could slide the thing and slide the thing. No, you had to reach in with your arm and grab the sheet just on one side. Hopefully you have someone else, and lift that sucker up like this.
Yep. Yeah.
Multiple times.
Oh yeah.
And it at the time, it's kind of like when you are like, "Oh, I'm going to clean the garage today." So you go out, you clean the garage. You can do it. You are doing it. You are moving the things around. You're shoving, you're picking up. When do you feel it? The next morning when you wake up,
right.
You're like, I can move my body. So I was never the nurse that was like, I can't lift. He's too heavy. We're going to have to get 4 more people in here.
Right.
It wasn't. Those people, COVID patients, we proned them all. They had a proning schedule.
Right.
Once your shift. Plus, I was
so for the audience that doesn't know what proning means, explain that. Just because I know there are people that aren't nurses.
Prone is the position that they call when you're on your stomach. So you're prone. I don't even know what it's called when you're on your back, but
it's supine.
Supine, and then prone. You're on your belly. Yep. And so it was thought that getting these patients onto their bellies would allow the back part of their lungs to aerate for some time and
basically expand the alveoli, the smallest functional part of the lungs, so that the surfactant, the pressures could be overcome, and that part of the lung could expand and receive exchange air and gases.
Right. And it works for some, but it didn't work for anybody who had COVID. Nobody who was ventilated that we had in a proning schedule lived. So, but we still did it. And we still were told that's what we're doing, even though whatever, I can't even talk about it. But so we had to prone all these patients, and I was the charge nurse. And so I might have my own patients, but also then it was my responsibility to make sure that so we had a proning team that was within the unit, but we had a schedule. And so we'd say, what schedule are you on? What schedule are you on? What schedule are you on? And we would go and everybody would just have all their shit ready. Like you knew you had the bedding to the side, you had all the lines, respiratory had to be there. Like it was a deal. And
it was a deal.
We're in the middle of the night is when this would happen. So we would have to turn all these patients. And some nights you had 4 people. Some nights you had 2 people and the respiratory therapist, but it still had to be done. And we did it. And so there are systems that will say, oh, but we have protocols set in place to protect our nurses' backs. Do ya?
Uh-huh.
Do ya? Maybe in a world where, you know, lollipops and gumdrops also come from the sky. Not in normal everyday nursing. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. You know, and yes, can you choose to rise the bed up and don't bend over and stuff like that? You can. But a lot of times it's just not even, you don't even have time. You're running around. So, you know, the environmental hazards, the emotional hazards. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Well, I mean, like I think a lot of the environmental hazards are emotional hazards. Like just like the wipes are going to cause cancer for us. Yeah. We're exposed to radiation all the time. I run and I hide behind walls whenever they're shooting X-rays.
Yeah.
You know, all of when you've got somebody with, you know, bladder cancer and they've got you know, chemo sitting in the bladder for an hour, and then you gotta dress up and put the suit on, you know, the
yeah.
inch thick gloves, whatever they are. I don't remember how thick they are exactly, but doubled. And you can't get it on your clothes. You got to be super diligent about the process that you go through to eliminate that chemo. All the infectious diseases, HIV, hepatitis,
TB.
What?
TB.
TB, my goodness.
I mean, anybody that goes in one of those reverse isolation rooms, you know.
Yeah. I mean, the fact like you know, the migrant workers, I remember when I worked in the ER, we would have migrant workers come in, they would have an accident. We would do some kind of chest x-ray or something, see something, test them for TB, and they pop positive. And, you know, a lot of times they were migrant workers, so they would get on the antibiotics for the tuberculosis. And then their season of work was done. They'd go back down across the border and stop their drugs, stop their medications. And then now we've got drug-resistant tuberculosis. And guess what? We're going to see that patient back in the ER next year, and we aren't going to be able to fix him. Mm-hmm. And he's going to give our healthy population a form of tuberculosis that we can't help, we can't cure.
Yeah.
Big problem. That's a big problem.
Yeah.
What else? What are some other occupational hazards? What are other diseases? HPV. When you cut HPV with a hot knife, it aerosolizes the HPV and can go into the surgical technicians, all the healthcare providers in that room. It can go into their lungs and cause lung cancer.
I did not know that one.
Yeah, it's a new one. All healthcare workers should be vaccinated against HPV.
Wow.
Regardless of age. Yeah. That's what our pulmonologist, one of my pulmonologists, advocates for, is every healthcare provider getting an HPV, especially in surgical services.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty heavy, really, promoting vaccines.
It's really heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know, and I think we bring this up because
it's contributing to the mental health.
Yes.
All these physical threats that we are exposing ourselves to, I mean, it absolutely impacted my mental health.
Yes.
Absolutely. Like,
because it's scary.
it's fucking scary.
You get around a nurse like me or Caleb back in the day, and I'm sure you probably didn't really feel comfortable complaining or bitching or, whining or telling us that you were scared because, I would have been like,
well, it's kind of a fear that I mean, we're so skilled in crisis management. That is like, if you really reduce our technical skills, we are crisis managers. And so that means we respond. We step up, we run into the fire, whatever the critical situation is, we run into it, we do it. I mean, we're doing it right now with this podcast. So when it comes to these unseeable threats, you can't see HIV, you can't see TB, you can't see any of these things, but they are absolutely part of our awareness. And so it's not in the moment that we're going to think about these things. It's very rarely. I think I just told the story about running into a patient a couple weeks ago. I ran into this room because this woman was coughing. I thought maybe she's dropping a lung. Not sure what was going on, but I just ran in. She could have had COVID. She could have had any kind of communicable disease. It ended up not being. It ended up being something totally different. But I just ran in without thinking. We just run in and we respond. And it's only when we sit down, it's when we're sitting at the desk in the middle of the night and we're like, it just comes to us. It's just that flash of an idea that this thing could kill me. This thing could take everything that I love.
Yeah. It's heavy. I mean, it really is. And I don't know. I think maybe just being aware of the hazards of your job, trying to mitigate and be as safe as you can to keep yourself and your body and your mind as well as can be. So like some proactive things, because you can't eliminate all of that. It just is. It always is going to be there. Things that can make it better. I mean, more people,
more staffing. Yeah. I mean, having more time to process, having, maybe a team of counselors that are assigned to us that we have, access to at any time, mandatory debriefing. There are none.
I know somebody who works for it's a state agency, I'll just say that, and a state police agency, policing. They now they give them 4 hours of wellness time. They pay them.
I think you've mentioned this before.
Yeah, they and you could either do whatever it would be, like go to your yoga class, go talk to the counselor that is hired by that agency, or an outside. It could be outside too. I asked about that because I'm like, really? You're gonna take problems to the inside therapist? That's silly. But they're paying them for proactive wellness. Which I never even thought of that when I was in the trenches. That wasn't even, I don't know. I just wasn't part of my vocabulary. I didn't really know, it wasn't talked about. And I think it is more talked about these days. And so things like what you're saying, I hope that it becomes more mainstream. I hope that proactive wellness and taking care of your mental health becomes more important to healthcare systems. And I mean, one way they could show their gratitude is by increasing the staffing. And I know that is not system by system, or it could be, and there isn't anything legal about ratios. I think California is the only state that has legislature on staffing ratios.
Wow.
And that's just a huge piece that would make things so much better. Because if you had time, now that the incidental and the accidental things that's going to happen, and those are going to happen with any job, but especially with violent patients and, in mechanics, if you had more people there, if you weren't rushing, if you didn't have so many things to do, you could take the time. It could be prepared. You could be prepared. Yeah. You might hurt your shoulder trying to run in and help somebody falling out of bed, but again, you should only be running from just not from the end of the hall or leaving your other patient on the toilet to run to the end of the hall. There would be less falls, but the accidents are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The preventable things, I guess, is what it would be nice to see, some of these systems stepping up to try to mitigate some of that stuff for us in a very obvious way. You sit around at a discussion table and, they kind of have the look like you have right now, just like,
well, I mean,
what we could do about that. Hello, it's obvious what we could do about it, but let's not talk about it or say it. Don't say it, or I would be the one to say it in meetings. Well, we could staff with 2 more nurses. I think that would be very helpful.
That would be a great answer.
Yeah. Well, Julie, now what are some other ideas? That's not always the answer. It's not, because it seems very obvious that it would be the answer.
The only answer.
The only answer.
Oh my gosh.
I know. You feel defeated sometimes.
I just love the way you tell stories. It just always makes me laugh. It always has.
It's loud and animated, and I think that's how I release that energy that I feel. Yeah.
It's so funny.
God. So, I don't know, wrapping this up today. All of the hazards.
I mean, it's just a lot of bravery, I think. That nurses are very brave creatures.
Yeah. And that you can't ignore it. Be aware of the threats and how you feel internally about things. If you can't work scared.
No.
And, you have to have some bravery to go. I mean, my God, think of those nurses who work in the psych facilities and stuff. We should get a nurse on that does work in a psych facility. I would love to hear.
I have a friend that worked in a children's psych facility, and she's got some stories.
Yeah. And then just, how other people cope, and what are some of the things that keep you grounded and keep your mind healthy, because we can't live in a scared mind. We can't live in a shameful mind. We can't live in a mind that isn't relaxed during some times, so that then it can keep protected when it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
If you're always in that fight or flight protection mode, that's just going to take you down. So,
I mean, the numbers don't lie. I mean, nurses are killing themselves. Nurses are taking their own lives. I mean, it's happening. It's, The numbers don't lie.
Right. Yeah. So just bringing awareness to lots of the different things that make an impact. Just giving food for thought.
All right. Well, it was fun.
Oh, yeah.
I had fun.
Oh, yeah. It feels good to talk about it.
I feel like I'm feeling a little bit more free to share the really dirty stuff.
Yeah. And I think it will, as we keep going, our filter, it's this kind of thing when you're a new nurse, you're like, well, most people are, you're like, you don't say much. And you're like, I'm humming. And then, you go to night shift, or then you've been there for 2 years and you're like, this motherfucker. So I can imagine it'll probably get like that. We do always want, we're not bashing. Like, we're not going to be a bashing podcast. That's not what we're doing. But we are bringing to light and talking about with words out loud things that are not cool, things that happen that nobody talks about. That's it.
That's it.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So we'll always have something to talk about, I feel like. And again, we're gonna ask for what we want, which is more sharing of the podcast. Hit the like button on YouTube.
Like, share, subscribe.
Yes.
All the things.
All the things. All of our podcasts are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you go to our website, it's www.nursingupod.com. They're all there as well. And we have a TikTok now, which this will be out. It will have already been, but that's fun. We're going to try to come out of our isolation shell boxes. And it's really easy for Caleb and I to talk here on the podcast, but when putting things out live on social media has been a bit of a...
Not sure what we're doing. Yeah.
So we're working on it, though. We're working on it because it needs to be out there. And that's where people are right now. So if people gathered in parks on Friday nights for festivals, we'd probably be there. But they don't. Not really. Actually, it's because I don't want to do that. So I would rather just post on social media.
Oh, it's funny.
We'll see you next week.
All right. Adios.
Adios.